The Spencer estate was a fortress built on power, secrecy, and legacy. That night, it became a battlefield. The walls, once lined with polished wood and hired tranquility, echoed with shouting, crashing, confusion. Luna was at the center of it, pale, shaken, her breath erratic, hands trembling around a positive pregnancy test that had split the Spencer family in two. Bill Spencer, towering and furious, was caught between wrath and restraint. Will stood silently, eyes shadowed, the betrayal too new to process. And then came Lee Finnegan, swift and clinical, like a scalpel in human form. She'd seen enough. Get her away from them, Lee barked, pushing past security, dragging Luna out of the room and into the hallway like a surgeon extracting a toxin. Bill started to protest, but the look in Lee's eyes, sharp, commanding, absolute, stopped him cold. She wasn't just a doctor tonight. She was judge and executioner. Lee led Luna to the guest suite's bathroom and locked the door behind them. Luna, barely upright, slumped against the vanity. Her pupils were dilated, her speech slurred. She wasn't just shaken. She was chemically altered. "You drugged yourself," Lee said, pulling out a small black medical pouch from her handbag. "Or someone helped you. But I know what this looks like. You sedated yourself to make the test look real, to play fragile, to manipulate them." "I didn't," Luna started, but Lee cut her off. "I've seen addicts fake symptoms. I've seen patients force miscarriages. I've seen better liars than you." From the pouch, Lee retrieved a bottle of activated charcoal solution. She twisted the cap off with one motion and forced it into Luna's hands. "Drink." Luna hesitated. Lee advanced. "You either drink this, or I call every toxicology unit in this state and have you strapped to a gurney for a blood panel." "Is that what you want?" Luna drank. Black liquid ran down her chin. Her stomach twisted. Her hands began to shake harder. Then her eyes rolled back. She collapsed, convulsing, her lips turning pale. Lee snapped into action, adrenaline driving her hands into protocol mode. She pushed Luna onto her back, opened her airway, and began external cardiac massage. Luna, stay with me." She grabbed her phone. "Call an ambulance," a priority code read. "Female, 20s, cardiac arrest, possible overdose." Within minutes, the EMT crew arrived. Lee grabbed the portable defibrillator from the truck before they could even reach her. Inside the marble hallway, she applied the pads directly to Luna's chest. The monitor repeated deadly flatline. Lee delivered the first shock. Luna's body jerked. No pulse. Again, Lee muttered. She pressed harder into Luna's sternum, counted compressions, then shocked again. Beep. A pulse. Luna gasped barely, the breath a whisper of life. Her eyelids fluttered. She looked at Lee. "Please," she whispered. "I'll fix it. I'll start over." "I promise." She moved her hand shakily to reach for something that had fallen from her Coata phone. Unlocked. It lit up. Accidentally, her finger swiped and a video played. The screen glowed between them. The footage was grainy, recorded secretly, audio distorted. But the voice was clear. Will. His face. His panic. His words, torn out of context, twisted into a blackmail recording Luna had never meant to reveal. But it was there. And Lee saw everything. She froze. The implications crashed down. If this ever got out, Will Spencer would be finished. Not just scandalized, but destroyed. A video like this, in the wrong hands, would paint him as complicit, manipulative, corrupt. It would destroy his future, shatter Bill's family, ruin everything. Lee stood over Luna, staring at her unconscious body as the monitor beeped a weak rhythm. The paramedics were seconds away from taking over. Lee reached into her kit. There, nestled in the foam, was a syringe of adrenaline normally used to restart a stopped heart. She held it in her hand, measured, calculated, and made a choice. She leaned in. This isn't a second chance. This is mercy, and with that, Lee injected a lethal dose directly into Luna's heart. The monitor flatlined. No spasms, no noise, just stillness. Seconds later, the EMTs burst in. Lee stood over the body, performing mock compressions, shouting code jargon, mimicking emergency protocol to perfection. She went into ventricular fibrillation. Lee said breathlessly, "I tried everything." She didn't respond. The paramedics nodded. They began their formal procedures, but the timeline was clear. They took over, but the effort was symbolic. Luna was declared dead. Cause of death, the lead asked. Lee replied evenly. Complications from a possible overdose. Self-administered, possibly psychosomatic manipulation using depressants. She collapsed after charcoal ingestion. I tried to stabilize her with epinephrine and defibrillation. No response. By the time Bill reached the room, Luna's body was already being covered. He stared at her, his expression unreadable, eyes moving from Luna's still face to the equipment, then to Lee. "You saved her," he whispered. And then Lee didn't speak. Will, standing behind his father, caught the faint glow of the phone still clutched in Luna's hand. He stepped forward, reached down and saw his own face frozen on the screen, mid-sentence in the damning video. He understood. All at once. Lee gently took the phone from his hand. It never happened. The police, arriving to complete the report, took one look at Lee's credentials, the visible equipment, the logged procedures, and accepted the story. No one questioned the timeline. No one suspected the syringe had been flipped from salvation to silence. To the world, Luna died of complications from a tragic overdose, surrounded by doctors doing everything they could. To the Spencers, Luna's death would remain a ghost story behind closed doors, one that would never be repeated, one that must never be spoken of. But Bill would never forget that second he looked into Lee's eyes and saw the truth. Not the whole story, but just enough to know that she chose them, that she made the call he never could, that she did what needed to be done, not to heal, not to punish, but to end it permanently. The sea was brutal that morning, biting, restless. Wind clawed against the concrete barrier of the old coastal bridge just north of Malibu, where the cliffs hung jagged like broken teeth and the waves crashed with the rage of things unspoken. On the edge of it all stood Luna Nozawa, her coat flapping like a flag in retreat, her hair wild in the salt-heavy wind, her eyes locked on the horizon, but her voice sharp, trembling, and defiant. Behind her, Lee Finnegan approached calm, calculated, her every footstep muffled by the roar of the surf and the heavy tension between them. It was supposed to be over. The fake pregnancy, the spiraling lies, the scandal that had nearly broken the Spencer family had tried to contain it. She had tried to save Luna once, in ways no one else ever knew. But now she was done saving. She had come for truth. Luna turned, her hands gripping the rusted railing as her feet hovered inches from the drop. "You want a confession?" she shouted. "Fine. I faked it. The test. The symptoms. All of it. I thought it would buy me time, sympathy waiver I needed to survive. But it didn't." Lee said nothing. "Now the police are coming," Luna continued. "They'll ask questions. They'll dig through everything. That stupid video. My texts. My search history. Do you think they'll care about my reasons? About what I meant to do?" Lee stepped closer. "They'll care about what you did. And they'll crush you for it." A long pause. Luna's eyes flickered, something breaking beneath the surface. Then came the whisper, fragile and venom-laced. "If I fall, it's your fault." She let one hand slip from the rail. Wine held between them. Her shoes inched closer to the edge. Her eyes stayed on Lie, daring her, taunting her. Not asking for help, not begging but demanding resolution. Lee lunged. With a surgeon's precision, she wrapped her arms around Luna's waist and yanked her back, both of them crashing to the cold concrete in a tangle of limbs and screams. Tires screeched behind them. A delivery truck swerved, brakes smoking, narrowly avoiding a three-car pileup on the narrow cliffside road. And in the silence that followed, sirens still distant, birds scattering above, the ocean groaning beneath, truth finally surfaced. Luna, crumpled and breathless, murmured into Lee's ear, "It wasn't supposed to go this far. I just wanted Will to understand how close he was to losing everything. I thought if I scared him, he'd change. He'd be better. I didn't know he'd turn it into a weapon. I didn't know you would. Lee stared at her. Not with anger. With a calm that had passed through fury and grief and come out the other side, numb and clear. I deleted the original test, Luna continued. I made a new one. I doctored the file. There is no baby. There never was, Lee stood. She looked to the road, now backing up with the arrival of two police cruisers, their red and blue lights cutting through the fog like judgment itself. Officers began stepping out, radios crackling. They weren't just here for safety checks. They were here for Luna. Lee leaned down slowly, whispering so only Luna could hear. Those sirens. That's not justice. That's a machine. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. It doesn't care if you lied out of fear or desperation. It will grind you down, and it will never let you come back up. It will make you a villain. It will make your story about everything except who you really are. Luna blinked. Her breath caught. I could tell them everything, she whispered. The video. The edits. The test. I could explain, no one will listen, Lee replied. You know that. Luna reached for her again in threat this time, but in panic. Please. I don't want to die for a mistake. I can fix it. Lee's hand moved gently to Luna's shoulder, then lower, then to the edge of her coat, where she gripped the fabric firmly, not pulling back, not holding tight, but guiding. She moved Luna, almost lovingly, toward the low stone parapet that separated safety from the sharp incline below. This isn't punishment, Lee whispered. This is mercy. And with one smooth motion, not violent, not rushedly, pushed Luna sideways, not into the deep ocean, not into freefall, but toward the sloped edge of the bridge, where a narrow patch of shallow surf broke against jagged rocks, almost invisible from above. Luna didn't scream. She twisted, eyes wide, hands scrambling for the air as her body dropped a bit far, but far enough. There was a crack, the sound of flesh against stone, the splash of displaced water, and then a thing. By the time the officers reached the ledge, Lee was kneeling, performing CPR. Her voice was loud, desperate, reciting trauma protocol with the precision of a trained physician. She slipped. Lee cried. I tried to stop. Harry pulled her back when Chesh just panicked. The paramedics rushed in. They rappelled down to the rocks below. Luna's body was retrieved, breathless, lifeless, with a compound fracture in her skull and visible trauma to her chest cavity. The paramedics performed resuscitation, defibrillation, oxygen, nothing. Time of death was called. The report would later list the cause as accidental fall following failed rescue during emotional crisis. No mention of a push. No accusation. Just an unfortunate tragedy on a coastal bridge. Lee gave her statement. Calm, consistent, devastated but professional. No one questioned her. Why would they? She was a doctor. She had tried to save a life. She had done everything right. Bill Spencer arrived later, pulled from a meeting by the sheriff's call. Will was silent when he saw the body, not out of shock, but because part of him had expected this, feared it, perhaps even predicted it. Lee didn't look at them when they entered the tent. She kept her eyes on the edge of the bridge, on the place where truth had slipped away. There was no autopsy demanded, no forensic analysis. The rocks were explanation enough. The world would mourn Luna Nazawa, troubled young woman caught in a web of lies and fear, whose life ended not with malice, but miscalculation. Only Lee knew different. She didn't do it to hurt. She didn't do it to punish. She did it to stop the noise, to protect the boy whose future would have been destroyed if Luna had made it to court, to keep the story from becoming bigger than any of them could survive. One life ended. Another was spared. And the silence that followed was not guilt. It was peace.